Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Welcome, 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 welcome. It is a lovely day.
And we are live today on Zoom and on Not Your Typical Girl Talks Instagram accounts.
So, if you are watching and you would like to
with lighting,
right?
That's better, right?
Yeah, that's great. Happy Saturday, everyone.
So, if you would like to join the conversation, you can click on the Zoom link in our bio and you can join the conversation, or you can watch us on IG Live. So welcome, happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Tatyana, who we will be introducing shortly. But this week's topic is a very, I don't want to use the word interesting, but it's an important topic because in light of everything that has been happening in the world, we are highlighting the issues in across the world, not only in the US with police brutality and systemic racism, and we've highlighted that, but now the key is to talk about solutions and a way forward. And on our show, we've always made it a point of talking about issues that affect our community. We've talked about the Breonna Taylor case, we've talked about the Ahmaud Arbery case, we've talked about Black mental health, we've talked about a variety of topics. Now let's talk about solutions and how we can ensure that we have the right solutions once the lights and the cameras are gone. And I think that's what the important part is that right now, the focus is on police brutality and the treatment of Blacks in the world, not just in the United States. And the protests are great, but once the lights and the cameras have moved, what do we need to do to make sure that we're actually making effective change? So I wanted Ms. Tatyana Gudge to join the conversation because she's one of the youth that is moving the dial forward. And I think it's important that youth join this movement. Some of us in our 30s, 40s, and 50s are tired. And we're also concerned that things aren't going to change. So Tatyana had written a very, very, very touching, and I'm going to grab my phone, pardon me, grab my phone because I wanted to read it to give some context as to why we wanted Tatyana to join today's show. So I'm going to read a post that Tatyana wrote and posted on Instagram about a week ago. And then I'll give Tatyana an opportunity to introduce herself and then give you some background as to why she wrote this post. So the post starts with, during a global pandemic, many realities have changed for individuals in Canada, be it one's living arrangements, work expectations, relationships, finances, or mental health. Throughout this pandemic, one thing has remained clear. Police brutality is growing at an alarming rate, and racial issues continue to perpetuate and dominate our society. The silence amongst many people I consider to be friends, those I have studied with, played sports with, and gone to social gatherings with, is deafening and disheartening to say the least. Social media is not the end-all be-all of activism or the only avenue of support. However, in a digital era where many people turn to social media as a means to stay connected and raise awareness, I have found that many individuals are absent in conversations surrounding the recent atrocities that have been brought to light. I am going to challenge everyone who has not felt outraged to sign petitions, to raise awareness, to check in with Black people in their life, and to engage in difficult yet necessary conversations in regards to the recent events to reflect upon their silence. There are several people I personally know who consume Black culture at obsessive rates, whether it be in vernacular, physical appearance, or most alarmingly within the sports and entertainment industry. Think back to last year when thousands of people gathered to celebrate the Raptors championship, a team made up of predominantly Black men, or the fantasy football league many made in the fall. Yet somehow you're able to separate Black issues from those same Black bodies who are the sheer source of your entertainment. The same people I see posting hip hop rap music to their stories who cannot begin to comprehend the lyrics of the rappers like that of Kendrick Lamar, or those I witnessed rapping along to the music at house parties at Queens King Street are awfully quiet now. I see it being one of two ways. One, you are afraid of what your support and activism will look like to your peers, your social circles, or alma mater, as heavy conversations such as these are not common occurrences amongst the dominating frivolous banter. Or two, it is because you do not care to give energy/time towards issues that do not imminently affect you, i.e., seeking justice for victims of police brutality/violent acts of white supremacy, because these victims do not look like you. Whatever end of the spectrum you find yourself on, it is a dangerous place to be, not only for yourself and those you interact with, but for the progression of society. If you believe it is not your place to speak or do not know what to say, quite frankly, this is a poor excuse for your inaction. The time you spent on TikTok learning the Savage Dance, which is sung by a Black artist and the dance created by a young Black woman, or scrolling aimlessly on Instagram is time you could have spent educating yourself on how to get involved in tangible ways. Many people continue to perpetuate the notion that racism is a relic of the past in Canada, or that the cases of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, or George Floyd would not occur in a country as accepting as ours is. I encourage those who share this sentiment to reflect on why they believe horrific instances of police brutality could not or have not occurred in Canada. It would be interesting to observe such explanations given in front of a Black audience with those who have very real lived experience of racism in our country. As a society, laws and policies have changed over the years through the abolition of slavery, desegregation, mandatory quotas, or affirmative action. But societal attitudes have and remain slow to change. Systemic racism is ingrained in our society, and prejudice has been passed down generationally. If you do not care about the issues affecting Black people who live in your neighborhoods, who sit a few cubicles down from you in the office, those that frequent the same restaurant shops as you, who share similar interests with you, people who are human beings just like you, who deserve to not be hunted or live in fear and suffering, my question to you is, what type of person do you find yourself being at the end of the day? Still more. This is a long post, but it was very important. If you haven't posted, don't stop there. The performative notions of a single story are not lost on me, as many people I know have yet to engage in conversations about race outside of their Instagram posts, researched the vocabulary referenced in said post, or checked in on the people of color in their lives. A singular post does not grant you a pat on the back. Your part does not stop with Instagram, and you have not absolved yourself from continuing to contribute to the fight towards justice. You can do better by engaging in fruitful discussions with your peers, researching cases of police brutality and white supremacy that are not as heavily publicized in the media, but are undoubtedly occurring here in Canada. Regis Kaczynski-Piquet. Another way to get involved is finding ways to donate and learning more about how to be of a better support towards the Black community through ways in which you consume information, the words you speak into existence, and the biases you hold. This is especially important if you are someone who frequently consumes Black culture, who has had or currently is in relationships with Black people, whether it be romantically or platonically. Do your part and engage in what is happening today. We are implicated in these oppressive systems, and as people, you need to explore where you stand and where you find yourselves in these discussions. If you are someone who has not done your part thus far, I am disappointed at your ongoing silence, and I hope you can move forward understanding why it speaks volumes about who you are. To those who are uncomfortable by discussions like these, to the people who do not understand why Black people must risk their lives to march during a pandemic, or even why Minneapolis is on fire, look to Dr. King, who states, "A riot is the language of the unheard." The people who are victims to police brutality and oppression need your tears, your rage, and your action. We have to be the enforcers of justice when there are no cameras present. Our society will continue to perpetuate racism until white people begin to address the acts of white on Black violence, both mentally and physically, that have been going on for centuries and are experienced by Black people every single day. Ignorance is not appealing or acceptable. At this age, we all have power to educate ourselves, to support those who continue to be directly impacted by racism, and to start creating a brighter future for the world we share, for the people we share our world with. Let me just.
Thank you.
That was phenomenal. And the fact that, you took the time to write something like that for Instagram, we absolutely applaud you. So we are going to give our audience an opportunity to get to know who you are. So if you want to just take some time, the floor is yours, Tats, and as my laptop has decided to do its own thing. Introduce yourself and kind of give people, kind of what you were feeling when you wrote that, and also what the response was to you writing that.
Okay, well, first, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be a part of your podcast. I think it's amazing. And you're talking about important issues and really trying to make an impact, which is great. I guess a little bit about me and what I thought. As someone I'm 22, I went to a predominantly white high school, and then I went to Queen's University, and many people know I think they have about 8% visible minority population, and that includes Asian people as well. So it's not just Black people. But for me, being on Instagram, it's really tough to see people sharing things all the time, sharing instances of police brutality and white supremacy. And also I would see people I knew kind of resharing the pictures of George Floyd, and it really took a toll on me to see, but also hearing people not be outraged, and especially when you're seeing someone lose their life on camera and then you're posting at your pool kind of thing. It made me feel in a space like Black people were like upset and feeling rage seeing this and seeing our people being killed in broad daylight. And then I'd see white people I knew who were at their pool or at the cottage up in Muskoka, and really it made me feel uncomfortable because these are people I was friends with, people I studied with, people I knew, and I just felt like as a society, when something happens, it's an attack not just against the Black community but for everybody, especially someone's it's not the first instance of a Black person dying on camera, but it's another one that's in your face and all over your timeline. For people to not speak up, it really spoke volumes to me. As well, I would start to see people kind of sharing, things like reach out to your POC friends, talk to Black people in your life. And these are people who were my close friends. Even I had a best friend even share this and not even reach out to me. And I knew for a fact that was her only Black friend. So that to me spoke volumes. Like, you're not even reading the post that you're posting. It's just a simple reshare. I'm not racist. I'm going to pat myself on the back and nobody can talk to me. So I would see that, see people staying silent. And then on the other hand of that, people sharing for performative reasons and not actually taking the time to read where to donate your money to or who to call or what to do in your small way as someone who's not Black. So I was feeling that an overwhelming kind of sense of just seeing a lot of white people also not really understand what that does for Black people, to see that reoccurring on their timeline with no context even. There's people just sharing the video for no reason at all, in my opinion, especially if you're not going to do anything about it. So I really want to challenge a lot of people that I personally knew to really think about why they were staying silent and to think about what this does for the Black community, especially for you to be, in such a privileged space, to be going on with your life when such instances are happening that really affect us all. So I was writing not in a way to I really wanted to take the time, because a lot of people think, a Black person's posting all these words, oh, it's going to be calling people out and be really angry. So I wanted to take the time, and it's sad that I had to make sure I tailored it in a more eloquent way, but I know that people don't listen unless you're really trying to make sure there's no spelling mistakes and everything. So I really wanted to take the time to write out just getting people to think about why you're silent or why you were just posting to post, and because that doesn't really do anything to move change forward too. You're sharing a video like the time is now, and then I don't really see anything after that. So that's why I personally took the time to do so. In terms of responses, I did get a lot of messages back from people, a lot of people apologizing, because close friends, again, I didn't call them out, I didn't tag anyone, because I've been seeing that too, but I got close friends messaging me and offering apologies and seeing what they could do to help further, and realizing that it was sort of a performative thing. Like, I'm just going to post because my part's done here and you can't call me out, but not actually taking the time. So I got those responses. And I also got a lot from people asking where they could donate to and what they could do further. So I think overall that post and the reason I made it was to really just get people talking, engaging in discussions, because I think that is the first step. And a lot of people after that who I was friends with alone, like started sharing and trying to put different resources out there for people to click onto. And again, social media is not the only avenue of change and activism, but I do think it really is important to right now take a stance and show like what you believe, especially during these times when everybody's posting so much. Like if you're active on social media and not posting, it really speaks to people who you're friends with, who you're engaging with, who you're working with. So that's kind of why I posted that, I guess. Well.
Good, awesome. So you did that, and it could have stopped there because it was a very eloquent post. I've shared it on various platforms that I am in. I'm in. So you could have stopped there, and you could have said, "Well, I've said it. You know, people have reached out, they get it." But you didn't. You decided to create a movement is all I can call it, called Unite for Tomorrow. So tell me what kind of spurred that.
That. So I posted the one you read out on Friday, and then over the weekend I was still thinking like how I can get involved, especially here, because as Canadians, like we don't, like I was saying in the post, like we're not different in a sense from the US. I guess there's a lot more protests happening in different states and people kind of coming together to demand this change, but there are so many instances of racism that I felt that people I know have felt, victims of police brutality themselves who I know. So I was feeling weird about just looking from the sidelines in a sense. And then when I saw Blackout Tuesday, I mean, like I got, there was a lot of people who supported that, as even Black people, and there's some who didn't like it. For me, I just felt like this was an opportunity for a lot of people who hadn't spoken up at all to just post the Black screen. And to me, I was like, what is this even doing for me? Like, what is this even saying? It's not saying anything because it's actually just a Black screen at the end of the day. So that I was quite disappointed because I was like, you know, at that point, it's like maybe share some resources. Like the whole point and the messaging behind the Blackout screen was to say like, this is the time we're going to take to educate ourselves, to not focus on these other frivolous things right now because people are dying, people are demanding justice. And so I kind of felt uneasy seeing a lot of people I know sharing things. I unfollowed a ton of people because I was like, now is your time to share a Black box that says no, not even a caption. And then there's people putting Black Lives Matter, so that was flooding the hashtag also. And we need to keep up with what's happening. So that was also a problem for me too. But I thought maybe this is the time to go like beyond that box, beyond like the social media square. And I need to step up maybe because I got a lot of positive responses. So I was like, I think people, if I created some sort of movement or action, I think there was at least be some people who would sign up. So I thought to create Unite for Tomorrow, which is going to be a 5K walk, runner, cycle next Sunday. And all the proceeds are going to go to the BLAC, the Black Legal Action Center, as well as the Black Health Alliance. Those are the two like organizations I found. They're local to Canada, which is really important to me. And I thought if this was something that was Canadian based, people would join and people would want to contribute. So I really kind of created a website, got the domain, and thought how I could brand this and how I can get it out, and wanted to make a timeline because I want to take action now. Not there's a lot of people who are activists saying, you know, people are stepping into the scene all of a sudden. And for me, I know that at least for the people I know who went to Queens, this is important to get it when they say, oh, I'm outraged and I'm feeling this. Well, it's time to put your money where your mouth is. So I created this. And I'm really happy I did because so far I released this yesterday. The GoFundMe as well as the website, and it's ready at like let me make sure I can refresh here. It's at $8,801, which I'm really, really happy about. So yeah, I'm really happy about that because a lot of people were donating and responding and saying this was like great for reform in Canada because we have so much work to do here. So I made the goal originally $1,000 because I wasn't really sure, you know, who would share this or if my friends would be willing to tell their parents and have those uncomfortable conversations that I'm hoping they do. And I got good response, and the event's next Sunday. So to almost be like at the 9,000 mark already in one day is just really great for me. And I'm so happy to see people getting involved here. So I'm proud of that.
I think that's amazing. So I know that some questions that I got when I shared your website is the great part about what you're doing that's a little bit different than other people who are promoting protests is that you're doing almost local protests. So instead of people all convening in say one space downtown, you've created where they can do one in Mississauga and Scarborough and Ajax. So tell me who do you have in charge to run? Because clearly you can't be in several places at once. So how have you organized it so that the protest is being led?
Yeah, I can't. I wish I could be at every single one to make also hold people accountable to see them coming out and showing support. But I thought to divide it locally just because of COVID-19, and from like a lot of people like me, like it's hard, especially if you have people who are sick in your family. You don't want to take that risk on. There are people who are taking that risk on because this is extremely important to them, and they want to show up and show their support. But I decided to divide it, and based on people I know who have donated, who've been responding, I thought to kind of put into different groups. So I have a few friends at the different areas. I have a friend in Hyde Park, I have a friend in Scarborough, I have friends in Vaughan. So all my close friends are going to be that checkpoint. Once you get there, I put an address spot, and I'm going to put more information just because so many people have been reaching out to me asking for clarification on where it starts, where it stops, and what happens the day of if they want their shirt to be given to them that day. So I'm going to be sending that information out again, but there will be a few people at each of the geographic locations that I've laid out, waiting to make sure kind of socially distantly check people, here's the spot to go and like let's go on a little walk. Because for me, like, it would be nice if there was a centralized location, but I, like, for example, live out of the city, and I'm not going to be taking like the train and TTC, and I don't want to be a burden on people again to like pay for Uber and stuff, because there are some people who don't want to do that. So if it's a local thing, I think it would be better for everyone to, again, still show your support, but do it locally and stay safe at the same time.
I think that's great. I think, what's interesting about that is that you are ensuring that these things are happening everywhere. I think sometimes, and you said it in your post, a lot of people think that somehow racism is a localized thing. Well, not in my community, we all are, not where I live, or not at my workplace. And it's just like, it's everywhere. So it's important to acknowledge that it is everywhere. Um, you know, Garcia and Chantel and I talk a lot about, race issues. And like I said, I'm your auntie, so I'm 40 years old. Like, and I think there's a lot of us who get to the point at our age, not me personally, but a lot of us just go, it's never going to change. This is how it is. We just need to have these conversations with our children and our grandchildren when they, get older, because, what are we going to do? We've kind of lived with this our whole life. You introduce yourself, said you're 22. From your perspective, and I think your experience has also been a little bit different, because you said that you went to a predominantly white school and you have predominantly white friends. What are you hearing with your cohorts? What is the discussion like right now?
I think right now people do want to take action, and people do kind of want to show their support now. And I think this is the time where you have to be clear on what you're going to support, what you're going to be talking about. I don't want to be talking about frivolous things with people right now. Like, I don't think it's the time. And if someone's choosing to be in my life, like, it's not a thing like, oh, we can go out together and we can, have some fun and kiki. Like, I'm still Black at the end of the day. And if you want to be in my life, you're going to have to show me how you support me. Just like in any situation, if someone is gay, they probably want me to show up and support for them too. And I think people sometimes would confuse that, where those identities lie, which isn't great, but I'm making sure that people know, like, I'm Black first and foremost. When you see me, I'm Black. It's not just that fun girl, or that person you're friends with who's nice. Like, I want to have these conversations. And I think now I'm really starting to see who is going to be there for me, but also what people care about at the end of the day, because there are some people who still don't want to have those conversations, and that's not going to work for me. So we're not going to be friends. But I think for the most part, people are trying to figure out how they can give, like, locally, and how they can get involved, because they know it exists here. Whether they like to admit it and talk about it a lot, they've seen it in some degree, in some shape or form. And I don't really know how you can actually avoid it at this point. It's pretty prevalent in our society still. And it's from the workplace to school. I've had my own experiences, like at Queens. Like, I've had to up until like a couple months ago, I'm not even there anymore, but I just wanted a grade on my transcript change because the teacher did not give me the correct grade, and I had to go all the way up until the dean. I had to email and get the attention of the dean because they wouldn't listen to me in the office. They're like, well, you're graduated, why do you care? It's just the principle of it. Like, this is the work I put in. I need to see that. And I told the dean, like, at this point, I'm feeling like this has to do with race. Like, and then that's when you say something about race, then people want to jump in. I haven't got my grade changed, obviously, but I just think it's not just in one sort of instance, and it's not just Black men, it's Black women as well. And I've been in workplace instances as well where I've had to suffer from racial injustice there too. So I just think it's important for everyone to have these conversations, and for friendships too. And my cohorts from work and school and everything, I'm making sure to have these conversations and to weed out the people who still don't want to have them and who are turning a blind eye.
Great. That's great. Where I'm gonna, I know that you guys are on mute, but you want to unmute yourself. I think what's interesting, you just said something, and it's something that Garcia and Tatyana and I certainly have experience in. And, to me, it's crazy that people don't recognize systemic racism exists, where at 22, having recently joined the workforce, you've already experienced systemic racism.
I've gotten
I just want to pause on that for a moment, because here is someone who has literally just graduated from university, has just entered the workforce, and already has had experience with systemic racism. So when you hear someone like Doug Ford, who is leading Ontario has the largest Black population in Canada. And when he comes on TV and says something like systemic racism does not exist in Canada, you have to question, if this is how our leaders think, how will there ever be change in society?
Exactly.
If we watch our Mayor John Tory show up at Trinity Bellwoods Park while people kumbaya as if, nothing is going on, people aren't dying around them, but is yet to show up for protests. And Toronto has the largest Black population in Ontario. Toronto is the most diverse city in the entire world. Not North America, it's actually in the world. And you have a leader who is not showing up for the people in the city. So, I think it's a conversation, and, part of moving forward is, how do we ensure that these conversations continue? Because you make a very valid point. If you're not willing to talk about it right now, if the people in your life aren't willing to, when it's everywhere, they are demonstrating in Japan, they're demonstrating in Australia, they're demonstrating in Germany, they're demonstrating in small towns, big towns, all across the world, people are championing it. And if you're not willing to have this uncomfortable conversation now, then when?
Exactly.
Because now is the time to have it. Now is the time to listen and learn. And so as part of what we do, we're sending an email to both Doug Ford and John Tory, asking them for a meeting just to sit at the table with them and have this discussion, because as leaders of the largest province and the largest and most diverse city in the world, I think it is important that they have an understanding of how their actions actually impact the community and how allyship is required in order to move things forward. And I think it's more than just, I wrote a post recently said that people need to listen with their eyes and not with their ears. I've said, don't show me with your words, show me with your actions what you're willing to do. And at 22, taking up it's a huge cause. And, I congratulate you, not just only because you're my niece and I love you, but I think it's a powerful thing that you're doing that a lot of people are not doing. And I want you to share as much, and I want you to stay on. We've got, a bit left in the show, but we're going to get into a discussion that, a lot of people I know have been having, because you brought it up about different causes that people can donate to and be a part of. So I've been having an issue recently, and this issue came up primarily this week, but it's always been in the back of my mind. And this is about the Black Lives Matter Toronto/Canada chapter. I'm gonna pause for a moment because I'm really trying to be as politically correct as possible because my mouth is just. The Black Lives Canada, I'm gonna put that over there, but Black Lives Toronto did something recently that irked the bejesus out of me, and I know many people around me. And that was coming out and distancing themselves from other people who were creating protests, almost making them illegitimate. Like, do not go to this protest. We did not put it together, so we can't make sure that it is right and it's for that cause. And as much as I got the fact that there are some people who are going to infiltrate, it doesn't matter who puts it on, because quite frankly, Black Lives Matter, they would more likely infiltrate Black Lives Matter protests than the March for Change that happened yesterday or so forth, right? Because Black Lives Matter stands for something very different. If you're a fascist or you're someone who's coming to riot, you're actually probably going to do in the Black Lives Matter one and not necessarily young people like yourself that are putting it together. So I know, and Carcy and I had a very, very long conversation this morning about the fact that for a organization who, and I'm threading as lightly as I can because my mouth is so big, but who is supposed to stand for justice for us, and they don't do shit. Like, I can't, because I'm really trying and I just can't. They don't do shit. Okay, let me just be very clear for people who do not understand. The last cause that the Toronto chapter of Black Lives Matter publicly took up was in 2016 in the Pride Parade, when they did not want the police to have a float in the Pride Parade. If you go on the Black Lives Matter Toronto Instagram, prior to this week, the last post, I didn't even need to have my phone to see when it is. I remember the date. It was January 20th of 2018. Prior to this week, that was the last time the Black Lives Matter Toronto chapter had posted anything. Since then, we have had a number of cases in this country, and particular in the Greater Toronto area, that have happened that they could have taken up the cause. DeFonte Miller, this young man got beat down, lost an eye, had a full trial, was supposed to have the sentencing, I believe it was April 9th or April 10th, the verdict, because I was one of the people, I belong in a community support group, and they had put together, they were having buses, and I had volunteered to drive people down because we were going to be sitting in the courtroom or outside to make sure that our faces were there so that the judge could see that people, the community had showed up, was showing up to support them. Of course, because COVID happened, that did not happen, but this was not being organized by Black Lives Matter.
That's one of the reasons I didn't actually pick them to be where the proceeds would go to, because, I'm not even sure about their membership, because I'm pretty sure one of the women who were at the top is now in California for law school. But for me, I looked at their site, and obviously they're a big movement, but to not see something posted since 2016 and to not have something even about COVID-19 and the Black community, I really look for that, especially now that's it's a pandemic, and especially when minorities are being disproportionately affected by that, you have to speak up. And all the other causes, a lot of other organizations that are more structured in Ontario and even in Toronto, who are pledged to making changes for the Black community, they have a tab about that, and they have initiatives that they're going and they're donating to, and they can tell you where it's going and what it's about. And I just found that their website was it showed that it was fragmented, the group, and to not see something posted for that long from 2016, and to not even their mission statement to be only 2 sentences. I mean, people want to I want to feel, even too, as a Black person, like if I'm going to be donating, I'm going to be joining this movement, like I want to know who's in charge. I want to know where this funds are going to, what we're continuing to do, because I don't know. It's not a clear vision. And I feel like whoever's the leaders right now need to really come together to make sure it's not fragmented and divided, so they can get that support.
And and Karsi, I feel like I'm dominating the conversation, that me and Tatyana, but Karsi and Chantal, I definitely want you guys to jump in on this, because I think Black Lives Matter Toronto dropped the ball. They've been dropping the ball. They had it, they threw it on the ground, broke it, never picked it back up, right?
So it was funny. For the past couple of days, I feel that people, now that, this is going to be dry, but now that, white people are off reading Black literature, watching Black films, and learning about us, we have finally taken the time to actually look within ourselves. And what we're learning is that we have a lot of work to do within our own community. Meghan Markle said earlier this week that if the foundation is broken, it doesn't actually matter how much we do. If that foundation is got a crack in it, that house isn't going to stand. And we have to make sure that our foundation as Black people is sturdy, is sound. And we can't have organizations that are not consistent. There is a bit of a scandal with Black Lives Matter Toronto that has to do with some GoFundMe funds, which cannot be cashed because GoFundMe hasn't received proof that this money is actually going to a specific cause that they said they're throwing. And people have gone to their Facebook page and have asked, whatever happened to, that fund that we all gave to? And they are being ignored. And this was brought up to me in a phone conversation that I had this week with a bunch of different Black people that are, Nigerian and have lived in Canada for years and years, people that have gone to school here, that were really counting on seeing Black Lives Matter Toronto step up, and they did not. And to know that they're only going to show up because of, and I'm not downgrading violent police brutality, that's a serious issue. But we have other issues too. Education. I experienced racism from the very age of 4 or 5 years old in kindergarten. That was the first time and it was from a teacher. Now, what are we doing about our educational system? What are we doing about the new graduates coming out of college? What are we doing about us? We've experienced it even after, being a professional for 10 years in a specific niche of career. We still experienced racism to the point where we had to leave the corporate world. We walked away from money. Like, if you're walking away from a lot of money, that just goes to show how much you're being affected. And we don't have time for organizations where they have nothing to say. There's content every day. There is enough content for Black Lives Matter Toronto to be posting every single day, to be providing resources. Like, white people shouldn't have to ask, where can I find a list of Black authors? That should not be a question. Why is that not up? Why aren't they releasing a title of a new book every day on their Instagram? Yeah. Why am I seeing that on random, no offense, random white businesses? They're telling everybody, hey, have you read this book? Have you heard about this author? Like, do we truly understand white supremacy? Why are they asking those questions and we're not providing that? I know that it's not our job to provide that, but it's Black Lives Matter's job though, because that's why they're here. They're supposed to educate and bring along anti-racism. And you can't bring that along when you have a business where people are questioning, where you're getting money from and where you're going to use it. And if people are asking, if the very people that are donating are asking you what happens to that GoFundMe money, like, why are you not answering these people? Why aren't you being transparent? And we're never going to get a seat at the table with the Justin Trudeaus or the Doug Fords or whoever. We're not going to get these meetings if we can't go in with solid, information, solid passion, and say, look, this is who we are, this is what we need to change. Until we can do that, I don't use Black Lives Matters hashtag and headline if we're not going to stand behind it fully. And Toronto needs it.
We absolutely need it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chantal.
It's like what you were saying before, Toshiba. I mean, Toronto is the most diverse city on the planet. And it's really baffling that Black Lives Matter Toronto hasn't posted anything since
it's actually 2016.
Like, what's the point of even they might as well close the thing down because it's not doing anything. So it's actually, it's embarrassing. It's sad. It's really discouraging. But honestly, and this is totally going totally off topic, but Tatyana girl, listen, my faith is in you. You are so awesome. I was just lost in what she was saying. I'm just like, wow, what was I doing when I was 22? Girl, I was not.
No,
I wish that I was doing what you're doing. Your bravery, the way how you wrote this, you put everything on the table, and you've challenged everyone. And I can't tell you how inspiring you are. Girl, listen, you have my vote. I need you to be in parliament. I was talking to Kirstia last night, and we were saying, or maybe racism is probably here to stay. But now, when I look at the younger generation coming up, you guys are not going to take it. You're not going to take this lying down and just being like, oh, well, this is life. No, you're on a mission. And I pray to God that you just plow through continuously and never look back. You got my vote, girl. I'm ready to print out the t-shirt. I'm ready to be part of the press campaign, whatever I got to do to get you in office. I'll just do it. Do it. I do have my vote. You got my money, you got my vote, whatever you want. I was going to throw it at you. Because, girl, yes. My faith is so much into the young people of today. You guys, you got it. You've got it. And I was always proud to be Black, but knowing that the generation coming up is like, nah, we're not taking this ish. You guys are amazing.
I think having also older people like you guys, not that far off, leading that way, having conversations with us, teaching us, instilling these values and saying it doesn't stop, it doesn't stop with you, it doesn't stop with me either. There's so many other younger Black girls that I know even, it's a movement together. And I think everyone in every generation needs to, do what they can to kind of propel that change that we need desperately in our communities and even for societies. Because my whole point is that even if we get policies in place, even if there's quotas or affirmative action, that doesn't change the person who sits down from me who thinks that he deserves to be there more than me. Because he doesn't, and that doesn't change his attitude. So we need to make sure people know that, that society is going to change. This is not a place where you can be, putting out into the air and openly saying, you're better than me or thinking that. So that's why I think reform is so important. And of course, police brutality, especially in Toronto, is a big issue. But also, putting money into housing. There's so many barriers for us Black people to getting into housing, employment, education, it's everywhere. I think that we need to focus on, exactly, moving forward and seeing what else we can do. Reform is especially important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that statistic of, for every $1 that a white male makes, a Black woman has made it when she's making 65 cents. So there's, just a number like that. It's okay, so we have a problem here. And we can't just leave it to another movement to say, okay, feminism is going to figure it out. It's not going to figure it out. The Me Too movement's going to figure it out. No, that's not its purpose. It's not going to figure it out. We have to figure it out, and we have to bring attention to it, because, all of these things lead to another thing. You know what I mean? If a woman isn't paid what she deserves and she's working hard, her mental health is at stake, but she can't afford to get the mental health wellness that she needs.
Exactly.
She starts to experience and starts to maybe manifest certain things that aren't good for her body. And then when she goes to tell her employer, I'm not doing okay, they're like, oh, what, Black people have mental illness? And then that's a question.
That's a good point.
And then,
where was Black Lives Matter when we were, yeah, that's right. You, me, Tashika, we went to the Black Mental Health Awareness Day, and
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And all
We were there.
No, we were there.
yeah, but you know, all of these things are happening, and you know, young mothers who are stressed out, and then before you know it, people call the police because they're having an episode, and then we either have a poor woman that ends up at the bottom of a building, you know, or ends up getting shot by a police officer. You know, an Indigenous woman was shot earlier this week. They said she was, you know, holding a knife, and she was obviously in distress.
Yes.
And rather than using their training that they should have, they just shot her to kill. And it's one of these things where I'm like, okay, so we obviously have a problem within, you know, the Black, Indigenous, you know, POC world where mental health is not being, like, we're not putting enough attention towards it. And you know, who's going to be there for all these kids that are losing their parents to police brutality? You know, like, no one is asking these questions, no one's looking after it, and that's what
Black Lives Matter should be doing.
It's a domino effect for sure.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. And yeah, and you know, I think of us growing up, we were told that you've got to work 200%, you know, when your white friends are, you know, hanging out because they're all going on the camping trips, they're all going to the spa, they drive up to the house and they're like, yeah, get in the truck. And I look at my parents and they're like, okay, I know these are your friends, but did you finish that project that we talked about? Well, I can work on it Sunday night. Yeah, but see, they can work on it Sunday night. You can't.
Twice as hard for half as much.
Exactly. And that's it, right? So we come out of school, we do our best, we do everything right. And even though we do everything right, even though Black excellence upon Black excellence, it's layering, you're like the Oprahs of the world, you're the Michelle Obamas of the world, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything.
It means diddly squat.
Yeah, so that means that we're in a society where the Constitution needs to be rewritten today because it doesn't reference anything about us.
Anything.
You know, any laws, anything, that foundation, it needs to be rewritten. I don't know who is going to be the one to do it, but if we can't get into the rooms to say this, then it's not going to happen. But it's up to us. It's up to us. I don't want us to put it, we need our allies there, definitely. And I believe in allyship. I've seen people that stood up and were allies for me, and it helped me. But allies are there to stand by and say, look, don't worry, I've got your back. We have to be there to say, look, I'm here today to say that this is wrong, and this is wrong. And we need to revisit all these things. And that's what organizations should be doing, and taking action. And I love what you're doing, Tatyana. You're doing something that's involving different regions around Ontario, around the GTA, where people can take part, and it doesn't take money out of their pot. Like, you know, people don't have to take out extra money to travel or do anything like that. They can just participate in something and be visible and make noise, you know, and say, hey, we're here to see change, and we're here to see movement in society. This is a human rights issue. This is not just Black, because until we're treated right, nobody's, look, we're not being treated right, then nobody is being treated okay. Like, if we can crack this code and really show up anti-racism, a lot of changes are just gonna happen. But it begins with us. So having people like Tatyana, am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, Tatyana.
Okay. Am I saying, okay. Because Tatyana Ali, love her.
Right? Fresh Prince.
Sorry.
Girl, you're losing focus.
I know, now I'm like, but until we can start to make these spaces where people feel that they can make change and accepting it. Like, let's not be out here bashing someone that wants to have a protest.
That's it.
Like, why are with everything happening, the first press release you choose to write is that you're not associated with a protest. That's the first thing that, like, out of everything happening in the world, like you said, COVID, people are being isolated, people are working from home, people are being laid off. There's a lot of horrible things happening in the world to everybody. And the first thing you have to say as an organization that's supposed to be about human rights is that we are not involved in a protest that is happening this weekend. It has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter.
You're doing something.
I'm like,
what's Black
wait a
Lives
minute,
Matter doing? Like, literally, like,
to me, it just seems
Tell us what you do.
we're being counterproductive, and we're not really supporting each other if we're gonna bash each other. The first thing you want to do is bash each other. Like, that is not progress. That is not us.
I just want to jump in because what I think there's a couple of things that were said in it, and I want to talk about it quickly, was reform that Tatyana talked about, and of course, something we always talking about is you need a seat at the table. And the reality is, if the organization that's supposed to represent, and I'm going to put that in big bold quotation, represent us, is fractioned, and it isn't actually representing us, what happens when we do get a seat at the table? Because this is an organization who's saying that we stand for Black lives, we stand for Black rights, we stand for Black justice, we stand for blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Yet they're not showing up. Yeah. They're not showing up. I had to ask in a post today because I just don't, maybe I don't understand, but I'm like, what have they done? Because I have not seen them. We talked about it when we were at the Black Mental Health Day and we were speaking up and we were talking about it. There was no one, and I understand that there were different things happening in the city, but I would think that as a unit, Black Lives Matter would have had people positioned at every single event that was happening on that day for the Black Mental Health Day. But they were not. There was a lot of people that were there, but they were not, and that they're supposed to represent who we are. And again, the first press release you put out since 2016 is to disassociate yourself from young people, because a lot of these marches that are now happening are young people coming together and saying, we need change. You know, to look at the march yesterday to see how diverse it was, and Tatyana was down there with her friends and, you know, all different nationalities who are fighting for change, and for you to try to somehow make that protest illegitimate and separate yourself from it speaks volumes, because it spoke to me. It said to me, you're not an organization who actually stands with us. Exactly. And we will never be taken seriously if we're going to look to you. Because guess what? When we're asking to sit down with the Doug Fords and the John Tories and the Justin Trudeau's, they're going to think they can't even organize themselves.
We can't even update a page from 2016. And the first thing you put up is that you're not a part of a certain movement.
And this is the thing, like, this is...
They need to build a damn float and get on the bandwagon and start, representing us.
Exactly.
This is the reason why. This is the reason why. Like, and my parents have always said this to me all the time, like growing up as a kid. It's like, you have to try to unite as communities, because they said the downfall of the Black man is the fact that we find it very hard to unite and stand in unison for one cause. And there's many times in history where we can see, like, the crabs in the bucket pulling each other down. Someone wants to be successful. There's someone there saying, oh, no, you don't. Like, why do you think you're going to leave me? Like, why do you think you're going to go be a success or do something that's going to move this planet, and I'm not involved, or I'm not going to do it? I'm not the leader. Then no one's doing it if I'm not doing it. And
that's, sorry to cut you, Chris, but that's exactly what Black Lives Matter sounds like right now. They sound like if we are not doing it, even though we should, we are going to put down everybody who isn't. It's funny that you use the word unite, because I love the fact that that's exactly what Tatyana did. Her movement is called Unite for Tomorrow, right? And I love that name, because what she's doing, and, you know, I don't want to speak for you, Toss, because you answer, but to me, what it said to me is, let's not just focus again on right now. And I wrote another post about it. What happens when the lights, camera, actions are gone? What steps are you still going to take After this has died down, now we all know there will probably be another one. There was already several this week. We saw police brutalizing people. Someone else died. I want to say it was last night. Like, we know what's happening, but guess what? There's some things that are going to get attention and some things that are not. But the reality is we need to say what happens tomorrow.
Yes.
And, Unite for Tomorrow said that. And this is exactly like, to me, and I have to ask you, Tatyana, you can choose not to answer if you want, but has anybody from the Black Lives Matter organization reached out to you to speak to you about what you're doing?
No one from Black Lives Matter, the organization itself, but I have received a message, and I've seen a lot of people, saying things about new activists and being in this space, and I guess the language people use. But I feel like at this point, semantics and that sort of stuff, beyond that, I don't think an activist looks any sort of way. I think there's been times in my own life when people have been like, oh, you do all this stuff on the weekend, you go out, you are in X, Y, and Z, but I can still care. I'm still Black at the end of the day. Everyone who is Black is a part of this community, whether they want to be in it or not. You're Black, we're united as one. So to me, I don't see the point in these divisive lines of, who's saying this, and if you're not catering to every Black person. But as long as you are trying as a Black person to make space in the alleyway, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many lanes and places people can go. But I think that we should appreciate and build people up and not look at who this Black person is and X, Y, and Z about them. Because to me, sometimes people say, oh, you don't look like the typical activist. Well, then I have to challenge it and say, what does that look like? What does that mean to you?
That right there.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yes. That part right there.
Tatyana.
So much to say about this, and I'm just going to my mouth because I can't. I'm just going to hold my
look like an activist.
Tatyana,
wow.
Kelly, Toshiba knows this. We had a long conversation because I was saying to Toshiba earlier today, I was like, one of the greatest triggers to me is a Black person telling me that I'm not Black enough. I've had it told to me many times, and I say they're haters, and that's fine. But as soon as you decide that, you're going to speak a certain way, you're going to dress a certain way, you're going to adorn your hair in a certain way, people start trying to strip away your Blackness and say, well, you're not Black enough. You're not Black. You're too white. Like, we get these labels placed upon us, and it actually makes us feel bad about ourselves and makes us question, do I deserve to work in my community because I don't have a big afro, and I'm not wearing a Black turtleneck, and I'm not, walking around with Bantu knots. And
that's what I said. And haircut that do in the background.
And no hate to people that are doing that. If that's what you look, then good for you.
But
listen, me, you, everyone on this panel right now, we are all Black.
Well, that's for my
You're Black.
If I go out on the street right now and I stop someone and I'm like, please describe me, they're gonna say, well, you're a Black girl with, and I'm like, okay, stop. I'll go to the other person. Describe me. Well, you're brown. Okay, stop. And it doesn't matter, right? Like, we are Black, and we are using this whole what is Black to divide us.
We are.
And to look at someone that wants to do something positive for our community and tell them, well, you can't do that because you aren't Black enough. That's a serious problem. And maybe, like I said, we all need to really, again, while our white and Caucasian friends are out here, watching the 13, and,
watching Roots and Django and all that.
And Django and while they're all out there doing that and reading books and doing what they should be doing, we need to do some housework in our community.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just noticed your eye went because we just went.
No!
So we can go back because we did have a couple of people who were watching. And it's infuriating to me that we actually can't unite on something as small as that.
Right.
Because, like you said, when I walk into a room, I'm Black. When I leave, I wrote up another post about that on LinkedIn. I was like, I wake up black, I go to sleep black, I walk in a room black, I leave the room black. I'm blacker than blacker than black. That is what people see. There is no mold of blackness. There is no, well, you need to be this type of black to care about black issues, because guess what? I'm affected by black issues because I'm black.
Yeah, we are versatile people.
Yep.
If you think that, oh, you do this and you do that in that way, you're not black. And it's like, listen, we are versatile people. We come from different backgrounds. We have different ways of growing up. We're all different. But in the same way, like, I don't see Irish people getting mad at other Irish people for not wearing their Irish traditional costume.
There's already divisive lines. I feel that white people kind of put you in a box and to look a certain way and be a certain way, and they try to fit you into something. And it's disheartening when Black people also are trying to put you in a box and say you don't deserve to be here or there, because white people have been doing this, they're continuing to do this, and tomorrow they're going to be doing this. We don't need it as well with our community to look at, oh, she didn't use this word here, or she went and wore X, Y, and Z, or her hair looks like this. I feel like when you focus on those things, it takes away from the bigger issue that we're all fighting for and we're all trying to come together for.
Yeah, because you know what? I don't believe they looked at Breonna Taylor's hair before they shot her.
No.
You know, they didn't check to see if it was straight or kinky. And they definitely didn't check on George Floyd to see if his black card was, you know, not yet expired. Like, you know, so these things that we are picking up and making a big deal, again, we have to get to the root and say, actually, this is what needs to change. And what needs to change is how we're treated. There's no equality for our community, and there needs to be equality. And we as a community need to get together and say, look, I may think this is what my version of Black is, and that's what your version of Black is, and that's fine.
It's okay.
That's fine. We are all going to come together and we're going to make change. That's what the conversation should be.
But it requires us at all levels, and you know, I talk about it because I'm all about strategy. Strategy is at the end of the day, sitting in a room with people who can actually make a change, they're going to want to know, what is your strategy for change? They don't want to hear about all the problems. No, I know I don't want, even just in my friendships, I don't want to hear about all your problems, girl. Like, give me, what are you going to do? Like, after you're done, thank you. What's your plan? What is your next step? And I think what happens often is people don't realize that when you're going into these rooms and you're sitting at these tables, you need people at all levels. Yes, you need grassroots people, and they are fundamentally important in the movement, and they drive the movement forward. But you need people at all levels, because you need to be in the ear of the people who have the pen to sign the laws in that are going to affect us and make the change. And that means that we're not all in the shikis with Bantu knots.
Last time I checked, you know, it's not 1976. It's the year 20.
Angela Davis, I'm sure she went to the salon and got her afro all good and sheened it up before she was up in the protest.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, there's no aesthetic, because we need solutions. When we sit down, because I'm making sure we get that conversation with John, Tory, and Doug.
Girl, yes.
It's not going in and saying, well, here's all the problems. It's saying, you know what? It's clear that you do not understand how this affects us. So let's have a conversation, because when you sit in a seat of privilege, you may not grasp. Yes, you get systemically, yes, there is an issue, but you can get the fact that I was recently walking down the street on Thursday morning at 9:45 in the morning, and as I walked by a little old lady, she moved her purse to the other side, because apparently me minding my business was gonna bump her down in the middle of the street and take her change purse when everybody's driving by. You don't understand what that feels like when I've done everything right. I went to university, I got the good grades, I did the good job, I did all of those things. Like you said, Black excellence piping everywhere, yet still an old white lady, an old Asian lady, an old Indian lady can see me as a Black woman walking by in the middle of the day and move their purse. Until you've experienced that, until you've experienced people changing their names on their resumes so that their name didn't seem Black, so they could get the interview, only to get into the interview for people to realize that they were Black, and even though they were qualified, still not get the job.
That's it.
So until we have people who are at the table, in the ear, having the conversation and being able to, again, either be the person who's signing or influence the person who's signing so that these changes can happen. We've talked about it. It's in healthcare. It's in the education system. It's in the housing system. It's in the banking system, because we are not getting funded the way other businesses are getting funded. We're not getting mortgages the way other businesses are getting mortgages. And these are things that we need. Find, like, economic power is so important. We can want to buy Black, do everything Black, but if these Black businesses never exist because we don't have access to, or at least fair access to, all of these things, how can we ever actually create a community that we can support?
That's it.
Amen. Too true.
Yeah, there is, within the Black community, there is so much talent within the corporate world, within the tech world, within, I mean, arts and entertainment is like
Black dominated,
overblown.
Yeah.
And we don't have a full-on understanding of why certain things are the way they are. You know, like, why is it that certain actresses cannot stay actresses as Black women? Because they don't get the bookings, they don't get the amount of auditions that their, you know, white girlfriends get as actresses, because they don't write roles for Black women. And, you know, someone like a Viola Davis, she's always said, she's like, you think it's hard for a young Black woman? Check, as soon as you're over, you know, 45, 50 years old, they are definitely not writing films about women like me.
No.
And that is something where we need to go sit down at the table and say, so all the writers that you have are Black. And, you know, you look at someone like a Kenya Barris, who's killing it in the game right now. Like, and someone like him, he says, he's like, you know, I write, he's like, but I don't have the amount of power that someone that has produced as much as I have. I don't have the amount of power that I should have yet. But Steven Spielberg, like, he could move, like, if he said, let's take California, chop it off America and move it off to another place, they could probably do that, because Steven Spielberg is so powerful.
He's a powerful
and
man.
That's what, if Black people are talented and if we're smart and if we know how to run business and do it, we deserve that fair chance. We deserve the loans, we deserve the grants, we deserve all those things that are sitting out there that are supposed to be out there to elevate us. And because of this whole old money, new money thing, you know, classism is also a thing, like, and it's always usually tied to race, you know, this idea of classism. A poor kid is smart as hell, he's a genius, but he's in the welfare system.
Funny you said that. I saw a story this morning about a young kid. He was homeless and he got into school and he was the first valedictorian, and he studied to become an FBI agent. Black kid, homeless. They wrote him off, saying, well, he's Black, very cute kid, nice young man.
Well, you know, they told
Malcolm, they wrote him off.
Yeah, I mean, they told Malcolm X that he should be a carpenter like Jesus. So, and
that's another show.
And that's another show.
That's another show.
But you know, that sort of rhetoric is, you know, we need to elevate our young people to let them know you can be anything you want to be, and because there are so many other, there are Barack Obamas out there, there are Michelle Obamas, there are Oprahs, there are
Tatyanas.
Yeah, there, you know, there are trans, there are people, there are generation, my nieces and nephews, there are me's, there are you's, there are Toshibas that are out there, but because the world is not showing up for them, they're gonna get lost in the system, because the system was not built for them. It wasn't built to accept them. So for me, it's like, we have to get a system in order that is there for those kids. We should not only be giving scholarships to kids that have parents that are hella rich, that, you know, inherited money from, you know, old money, like Donald Trump. That's why Donald Trump is where he is, because of old money. Why can't we have kids that are the ones that are on the welfare system, that are coming from single homes? Why can't they get a chance too?
They can't get a chance because people like, what's her face from Full House decided to sabotage her
Lori,
picnic and paste her kid's body in some boat
and taking the place away, taking those grants away from kids that really need it. And we need to pay more attention to those people and those children. We have to stop this like foolishness.
Divisiveness. And and I'm conscious of the time because I don't want to, but I think, we've talked about a few things, and I think that are important. And again, like, you have to get a seat at the table, I think. But in order to get a seat at the table, let's not ignore the fact that we need allyship.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've always said I'm not about to go out and put together a full PowerPoint presentation about how you should not be racist. That is not my job. There is something called Google. There's the encyclopedia. There's books everywhere. Go to the library, right? Use the Libby app, find a book from the library. You don't even have to physically go anymore. There's a whole app for that.
Yep, for that.
On Amazon. Like, figure it out. So I'm not about to put together a presentation for you. However, what I will do is, when you are ready to be uncomfortable and have that conversation, let's have the conversation. And once we're done the conversation and we have somewhat of a perspective of both, because it's also important for us to understand. I've never been in that place of privilege with white skin that things come easily to me. So I actually don't understand. As hard as people might say, well, that's nothing to understand. I'm sure that comes with its own burdens, right? I'm sure that comes with other things. And so I have to be equally willing to listen. However, once we're done listening, now let's talk about the step forward. Now let's talk about what we can do individually and collectively, because what happens is then you go off into your own communities, into your own little circles, and that's when change starts to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not when we're necessarily in the room together. Yes, we can talk about it, but change starts to happen when this person now goes off in their circle and starts talking about, I had a conversation with a young lady named Tatyana, and she really enlightened me to what is happening and the effects that the decisions that we're making in this boardroom are affecting young ladies and young men who look like her. Right? That's when those changes start to happen. So let's not ignore the fact and discount the fact that allyship is important in the movement.
It definitely is important.
People in this movement.
It is.
Definitely. I told a friend of mine, like, I consider myself to be, an educator, someone who can help provide resources, but I'm not doing anyone's homework. I'm not going to do the time it takes to research and understand these things on a serious level. I'll provide you links and where to go, but that is on you. Like, the bar is there, and where you choose to go forward, it's on you. But you do, that is how the spark is going to change for people to have those conversations and speak up when it's a room full of white people. And you need that, like, it's a substantive representation sort of thing. And if Black people aren't there, but maybe we can talk to those people who are also in the room as well. So it's important for sure.
Absolutely.
Tatyana's so right. Sorry, Carcia, to cut you, but I think Carcia and Chantel, that my mentor and someone I've gotten close to over the last few years is Eric Dryban, who's the U.S. Assistant Attorney General of Civil Rights. Yes. That is someone that I speak to quite frequently, and he and I have discussions about this all the time. And, what was interesting is, being in the U.S., he said to me, Shiba, I never really even thought, like, people over here think Canada isn't racist and, Canada is so this. And we've had to have those very uncomfortable conversations. But the thing I said to him is, it doesn't matter if you like me and you're friends with me and I seem great. What matters is when I'm not in the room, are you still championing my cause?
That's it.
Right? Because it's so easy, like Tatyana said, it's so easy, and I talk about this all the time on a lot of shows, show up for me when I'm not in the room, because that's how the change happens. But until you're having those conversations with those people, if I didn't get a seat at the table, I would have never met this person with whom I can have conversations, who's in a position to make change. If I hear about a case that I think people are saying, oh, you know what, there's not enough attention to it, I've sent him articles and I've said, hey, by the way, do you want to look into this? I need you to, because I need to understand, because within my community, this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that there is no action on the fact that a white man has killed this black man, and the district attorney general isn't moving forward because that's their brethren. And I sent him these cases. Again, I needed to be in the room. So again, I might not be on the front lines with my fist up talking about whatever, but I put myself in a position so that I can meet people who, again, have the pen in their hand to make decisions and to make change. And that's what we need. We need economic power, and we need to make sure that we are creating laws that will actually impact us on the long term. We can make all the money in the world, and we can spend it all around the world, and we can have, but economic power solely is not enough without systemic change. They created Liberia for us. When we got freed, we were supposed to all run to Liberia, right? Like that was the whole, that's why like Liberia means freedom, liberty.
Yeah, that's it.
Liberia was created, so yes, the slaves are free, y'all go back now. Well, how successful was that, right? Like we didn't just go back, we stayed in this country, and we stayed in this country that we built, and this is all around. I was born in Jamaica, but dropped my family off there. I think my great-great-grandmother was, raped by the slave owner. Like we all have histories of things, and this is not gonna change because we get a few dollars. It's changed because we're making the loud enough noise to allow people to listen. But when they finally open the door and say, Tatyana, take a seat, Tatyana has to have the poise and the intelligence enough to be able to champion the cause in a way that they will listen to. Because we will listen in a certain way doesn't mean that they will.
True.
And so when you have an organization like Black Lives Matter who rang a horn and saying to young people that they don't fit, pardon me, the aesthetic of what a leader should be, there is no such thing. There is no aesthetic. If people are listening, and Tatyana created a website and a thing in 24 hours, thought they were going to donate 1,000, and now it's almost at 9,000. If that's not power, I don't know what is.
Exactly. You put the intention out there. If you make an intention to say, today I'm going to do what I can to make change, then that's what will happen. Like you have to put that intention out there. And for people that feel that they need to be validated by anyone to do something for the community, guess what? You don't even need to be Black to help with this situation, and like allyship, like I've had many of, my white friends, former colleagues, reach out to me, and I always ended the conversation with, thank you for choosing to be uncomfortable with me, because I know this was difficult for you. This is not a conversation. I've known you for 10 years and we've never talked in this way. And to know that you trusted me enough to be uncomfortable with me shows me that, you're trying to do what you can to be a better person. And I know that one person has said to me, a guy said to me, he's like, you know what, sometimes I'm just scared about how the community would react if I were to come and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, the first thing you do is be quiet, listen until we're done talking. And then when we look at you and expect to get something from you or hear something, then talk. And I'm like, we are not scary. We are not going to bite your head off. No. We are not. We just want someone to listen.
That's it.
And if you're listening, you will hear us, and your response is going to be something that's going to be helpful to us. We need you. We need allies. We need allies from every race, every nation to come together and help us make noise. Because if we unite, then we
can move mountains.
I mean, these guys were not going to go to jail. Ahmaud's killers were going to sit at home for the rest of their days as innocent men.
For 2 months.
That's the issue.
Right?
That's the issue.
And because noise started happening, because people said, yo, this is not justice, that's where change came along.
But that's the issue. Even when the cameras aren't there, like, you need people to have the same outrage. Like there's so many cases things that are happening, there's no cameras, and even that people are being questioned. Did he do this in the right way? Or maybe this happened. So we need people to actually step up. So all the people who didn't have a camera inside or didn't have that voice recording to also be heard and to also have that same level of outrage, because there's only there's a few cases that are really brought to light in this sort of way, that are in the media to this degree, but it's not there's just so many other ones that need that same care, that same outrage, I think, as well.
Yeah, I do want to bring up one point actually, Tatyana, because it just came up in my head, was even, Saunders, he's been trying to get body cams on our police officers for like 2 years, and they haven't given him the okay yet. Why? We need body cams on every police officer, and we need it so that they can't just turn it off when it seems like the time to turn it off.
Yeah, because they felt that
this is something that an organization like Black Lives Matter actually should be for. They should be helping push. They should be like, hey, Chief Saunders, we're here for you. We want body cams too.
What can we do to make this process go faster?
Then we would know exactly what happened with Regis.
Yeah, because they're claiming that she was pretty much Spider-Man and jumped from one building to another, which is not the case. We all know that she got pushed off. She was pushed.
But then,
her off.
It's their word.
It was their word against
a dead woman.
They pushed the mom out of the room. She was calling for her, and she just happened to want to be Spider-Man all of a sudden.
So that's my thing, right? We don't know what's going to happen because there's no true evidence to say what happened. But if they were wearing those body cams that our chief has been trying to get for months and months and months and months, there wouldn't be a question as to what happened.
Exactly.
And it goes back to, again, having the power to have the pen in your hand to make sure that those basic things are happening, because they're, and I'm conscious because I'm going to want Tatyana to have, I'm going to have you talk, Telly, and then I want Tatyana to have the last word. But I think, the word has come up again. Accountability is important. There are certain organizations within our world that require accountability and should be transparent. And the police system is one of them, if not the main one, that should be completely accountable to its citizens, that it's claiming to serve and protect. ... unless you're Black. And I write that all the time. ... I will create something. I'm like ... unless you're Black. And we need to have these uncomfortable conversations, and we need to have them everywhere. And I think there is, I had a moment last week on LinkedIn where I wrote a whole post, and at the end, I even called people out and I said, if you think that this is not the avenue that I should use or the outlet I should use to express these opinions, then please tell me where else I should talk about social justice, because that platform is meant for people who are in higher levels. They are the people who need to hear this conversation. Yes, I can have it on Facebook with my peers and other people, but the reality is I need to put it on a platform that has the attention of brands and people in position to make change. And I think a lot of us go and say, well, I'm scared to do that, but you need to hold people accountable to create action. And until they realize that you have something to say, that's when they will listen. If you don't speak, no one will ever listen.
That's it.
Exactly.
Tatyana had to speak up.
That's it.
She could have sat at home and said, Mom or Auntie Sheba, I don't like this, but, I'll talk to a few friends. She used her platform, and now she's creating a movement, an incredible movement. So that's my last couple of words.
No, girl, keep going. Just trust. I love just hearing you and Cara and Tatyana speak, because what you guys are saying is so true. And I remember actually, Sheba, on Instagram, you did write about something that I was just like, yes, that there's a fire within now. And this is a flame that will not go out, period, at any cost. It's horrific as what's the events that led up to this moment. But what I love seeing with Tatyana and with Trey and with us and other Black people that you wouldn't think, like we were talking about how you don't look like someone that would start or become an activist. What I'm seeing is, just sit back and wait, because the fire that's within, this cannot be contained. We're it's as if you're running this marathon and you're going to go faster than Usain Bolt. This is a movement that's not going to be shunned away anymore. Yes, the lights and the cameras will turn off because they'll go on to the next story. But I'm going to continue to believe and have faith that despite the cameras being turned off, this conversation, this flame that we've started has to keep going because this cannot be silenced anymore. I know that we've had protests before for other things that have happened in our community, but nothing to this degree where the entire planet has pretty much shut down COVID and said, okay, you know what, COVID, step aside for a minute. Because this is something bigger now. This is something like we were discussing. They'll find a cure for COVID. They will. They already have it. They're just trying to collect dollars. I don't know what they're doing, but they have a cure.
But you can't sanitize racism.
That.
Right? I'm actually gonna use that one. I'm gonna steal that one.
You can't sanitize that. You can't sanitize that. And that's something that needs to be put to rest once and for all. It's going to take work. It's going to take a billion and trillion of time, but you're committed, which we're committed to making our voices heard and known, that no longer should our skin tone be a crime. It shouldn't be a hindrance. It shouldn't be the reason why Joe gets a job who can't do the job at all versus Samantha, who's a Black woman who is clearly perfect for the job and gets shunned because she's Black and she's a woman. That needs to be put to bed. So I'm a girl, listen, I am excited. I'm ready. Like, I've honestly, Doug Ford, Trudeau, Tory, they can all sit down and it's about time they damn well listen. Because all of that, and that's it too, because they're listening, but now they need to do something. They need to do something. Like we were just saying, yes, take a knee. That's great. But you need to do something now. It's time for something to be done.
Yeah, it's the way forward. So Tatyana, we're gonna have you have the last word. If you want to tell us again where people can, find your movement and so forth in just 3 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. But unitefortomorrow.ca. It'll be next Sunday. I'm probably going to add a couple more locations because some people who are in like Hamilton have reached out to me saying, Mississauga is a little bit too far for them to get to. If maybe they could even find out some people who they know in the area that can kind of build that traction even. That I will be able to like kind of add an event. So I'm going to be adding more events and going through and seeing what kind of comments people left because they got a few about locations and logistics. But it'll be next Sunday and already at like got another $200 during the phone call, which is nice. So we're almost at 9,000. Like I think there's $50 to 9,000, so I'm excited. And it's been a day and there's still so much time. And I think I really want to push the word out and get people involved and hold all those people accountable. Open your purse strings, forget the black box. There's time to move forward and really put your money where your mouth is because that's what's going to change even our city. And like America has its own problems. So we need to build up our Black businesses, our Black people here, anything that's Black owned, any issues we have at home, we need to change that. So again, focusing on after this events of police brutality and white supremacy that are going to continue, what we're going to do also build up our community to make sure we have a strong foundation and not so much focus on like the divisive line between our community as a Black community, but to come together as a whole and lift each other up and not focus on what I look like as an activist or what you look like as an activist, because we have the exact same goal. We both want our people to be treated equally no matter what intersection place they come from, their poverty lines, or even, what they classify for gender. I think it all kind of encompasses and we're all a community together at the end of the day. So getting past that and who someone looks like, who they are, and just focusing on what they believe and what they want to see change, because when it comes down to it, we all want the exact same thing. So
I love it. And just a quick reminder of where the funds are going to once this is over.
Yeah, the Black Legal Action Center and the Black Health Alliance. And the Black Health Alliance focuses on mental health and the overall well-being of Black people and Black Canadians here, and also focusing on the impediments to getting justice in the health system, for example. So that's really important too. That all leads back to each other. It's a domino effect that we kind of talked about, and just having mental health problems from work, and then just getting believed when you go to the hospital about what you have and the issues you're telling a doctor. So just those barriers in place, I think the Black Health Alliance really is committed to kind of overcoming, especially with the pandemic and issues happening now. And then the Black Legal Action Center is providing like free legal services to low income and no income Black Ontarians, and providing human rights advice and a lot of other issues, I think, in combating anti-racism. So those were the two places I thought would be important and really are a part of that domino effect that will help kind of curtail that. So that's where they're going to, and I hope it continues to grow over the coming week. Thanks.
Love it. We are extremely proud of you. You are the face of activism moving forward. You are going to make a change. I think what you did was not only take an opportunity to make a spotlight on the issue, you actually did actions. And you created a strategy, and your auntie loves a strategy. You created a strategy for change. And that's actually what we need, is we need a strategy for change. And being able to bring people together from different places, understanding that we're affected even after we go home into our communities, I think that says something, because when people see that the communities are coming together, I think conversations start happening in these individual communities, which are so important. So, you know what, so proud of you. Again, unitefortomorrow.ca. If you have not, and watching this later and you have not donated, please donate. When are you going to actually close the donation, Tatyana? Is there an end date?
I'm still trying to figure it out, because I also have t-shirts. That's a part of the tiers when people sign up. So the first tier is just, $20 if you want to kind of show and kind of support, walk or run. And then $30 if you want a t-shirt included. I know a person who can create them. I have a whole design for them. So yeah, so I'd have to kind of decide when I'm going to close that off, because I won't be able to get a t-shirt if I don't get an advance notice. But I think I'll leave the funds open till probably like Saturday or so, but the t-shirts will probably cut off midweek, because I won't be able to get them out to people.
Awesome. So we normally end our show where we do little takeaways, and we do it in alphabetical order. So Garcia, if you want to go first and say what your takeaway from today's show was.
So my takeaway is that we should unite. We should look at ways how we can help each other move forward, because the future is bright. That's it.
Love it. Kelly.
Yeah, I couldn't hear. I'm still excited, girls. Like, I'm still on a break. Like, I love this. Oh, my takeaway is just to continue this fight and to not give up. I know that it's tiring, and we've been tired for a minute, but you take your rest if you have to, and get right back up and keep fighting. Let's, like Nas and Lauryn Hill said, walk up to the sun hand in hand. One day, hand in hand, we're gonna walk up to the sun and say, yes, the day has finally arrived. And I'm excited. I'm excited. I can't.
I love it. So I think my takeaway is, Tatyana said the word, and it's reform. Reform is needed, and reform requires us to be able to have seats at the table and to ensure that we're continuing this fight even after the lights, camera, action is gone. And so we need to show up and show out, but we need to show up and show out in a way that will allow the people that we need as allies to listen to us, because that's fundamentally important. And we need to continue this fight again after all of this is done, and have those uncomfortable conversations, because they're uncomfortable for everybody. The people having to speak about it and the people having to listen, but they're necessary conversations, and we need to have them with the people in our lives and the people in power. So I will also say, anybody who's watching this who can please tell me what Black Lives Matter is doing. I would love to have a conversation. I'm very serious. If anybody can direct me to the leaders of Black Lives Matter Toronto, I would love to sit down and have a discussion and a conversation with them, because maybe it is that they lack the requisite skills in order to put together a strategy, but I have them. And so therefore I will volunteer my services for free to help them to put together a strategy that can really help us, because again, this movement is for us and it needs to be by us. So if they need help, I can help them. Reach out to me, because strategy is needed and we need to have this seat at the table. And if they're not going to create it, individuals like Tatyana and the individuals who did yesterday's march will have to, and they need to not be denouncing these organizations or as illegitimate, because the reality is they're not doing anything. And again, they may need help, and I'm happy to help. So I know, Tatyana, you could have the last word and say, you know what, like we talked about solutions and the way forward, if you want to just give us your take.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway is that, again, we're all Black here and outside of here. And I think that creating the divisive lines amongst us is really going to harbor us from getting tangible change forward. We can also try to get that tangible change amongst our allies and whatnot, but in the community itself, you know, shutting people down or saying you don't look a certain way, act a certain way, you're not affiliated with this group or that group, is going to harm, because again, we have the same goal like we talked about, and just looking forward to what we can do together to raise people up and to really join the fight, because we're all one, I think, as Black people, not all these different lines. I think that's a really big emphasis on what I take away from it.
Love it. So I'm gonna give you my fist. We're gonna go out with our music. You are definitely ruling the world. You are one of the young people. We will put our energy into making sure that individuals like yourself shine, because we need you. Because after we are dead and gone and buried in a pine box, you and your children and your children's children will still be fighting, and we hope not, but still be fighting and championing the cause. So as your auntie, I'm very proud of you, and continue to be there. And I will be out there with you walking bike. Well, I'll be walking a bike. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you to those on Instagram that joined us. And we, of course, will be uploading the entirety of this show on our social media platforms. So thank you, ladies. Love you all. We're better together. Bye.
Bye.